So we are talking about market structure and how market structure can impact the cost and price of and as a result the profitability of different firms. So the nature of the industry, the structure of the industry also impacts the performance in terms of pricing, in terms of costs, because these are the two main things, the price and the cost, that determines the profitability, because profit is nothing but the difference between price and cost. So we discussed about perfect competition. Now today we are going to start talking about monopoly. Monopoly, which is the other extreme version of market structure. On one side, we have perfect competition, and on the other extreme, we have monopoly. So in a monopoly market structure, there is only one firm, uh, just opposite to the perfect competition, in which there are a large number of firms. So in a monopoly, there is only one firm. So firm and industry both are synonymous, because industry is that one firm and one firm is industry. So there is no difference between industry and firm, because there is only one firm that is operating in that particular industry. Another unique feature of monopoly is that there is no substitute product available. It means that the product that the firm is selling is unique, unique product. So unique, there is no other firm that is that is selling that product, and there is no substitute available in the market. This is another important feature of a monopoly market. The third feature on the basis of which we can differentiate a monopoly market, we can identify, we can specify, we can define, is that entry in that market is blocked. Means the barrier to entry is there. New players, new firms cannot enter into that market. The barrier in different industries may be different. The most common barrier is government law and regulations. Sometimes the government laws and regulations are designed in such a way that a particular company has monopoly over a particular business. So new players cannot enter into that market. That is why the monopoly of that firm sustains, persists. Then the fourth feature on the basis of which we can define a monopoly market is information is imperfect. Information regarding prices of that product is imperfect. So it is not known to the market what is the what is the prices, what are the costs involved in the production of that particular product. So very less things are known about that product. So availability of less information, imperfect information regarding that product, regarding that service, if it is service, then regarding that service. So availability of imperfect information is another feature of a monopoly market. There may be several sources of monopoly, but the crux is that a key resource is owned by a single firm. Key resource. Any firm basically owns and operates some resources, and using those resources, it converts input into output, a product. So if a key resource is exclusively owned by a single firm, then in that case, it will be very difficult for other players, other firms to run the same business, to produce the same product. Say, for example, in India, uh, we have IRCTC, which is a railway reservation website. So railway reservation, booking a railway ticket is exclusively the monopoly of IRCTC. And this monopoly has been established by the government regulations. I mean, no other player, no other private player is allowed to book a railway ticket. Because booking a railway ticket is exclusively, this right is has been given to IRCTC. So sometimes a key resource is owned by a single firm. Or say, for example, there is a diamond mine, and the rights of that diamond mine has been given to a particular company. In that case, that particular company will be a monopoly, because there is no other firm, other company that has been given permission to mine uh, diamond. Uh, so things like that. So sometimes a key resource is owned by a single firm, that gives rise to the monopoly. That is the source of monopoly. That is the reason for monopoly. So the government gives a single firm the exclusive right, sometimes patent, to produce some goods or service. So patent is also one of the reason for monopoly. So especially it happens in industries where products are based on R&D. So if R&D, because of R&D, because of research and development, R&D, some new products are designed, and a patent is registered. The government gives them exclusive right to produce and sell that product. No other players can copy that product. So say, for example, in pharmaceutical industry, um, uh, uh, if a new formula has been patented by any pharmaceutical company, so normally they protect their patent, and it means that no other company can produce that same exact product. So patents are also one of the reason for the establishment of monopoly. That monopoly can be, in a particular area, in a particular product category, in a particular product, a single product, things like that. So products, exclusive rights or licensing is also one of the reason. Then patents are also one of the reason for monopoly. And patents are especially in those industries where research and development is important, like pharmaceutical industry. Then there can be, a natural source of monopoly also. Natural source of monopoly, say, for example, now you are aware of the concept of economies of scale, that if a product is produced at a very large scale, that will reduce per unit cost. This concept is known as economies of scale. So if the company is very large and it has deep pockets, a lot of capital is there, so it can afford to invest in the capital investment. It can afford to make capital investment, a very large capital investment. So it can produce any type of product at a very large scale. And the benefit of producing any product at a very large scale is that the unit cost will be reduced. So if a new company is planning to enter into the same industry, it will be difficult for that new company, that new firm, because the cost of it cannot start immediately producing at a very large scale, because it will start at a initially it will start at a small scale. So there are disadvantages associated with operating at a small scale. So small players cannot compete. Small players cannot compete with those players uh, which are operating at a very large scale, because large scale companies can produce at a low per unit cost, whereas new players, the cost of per unit will be higher as compared to those companies which are operating at a very large scale. So this phenomena can be categorized under the category of natural monopoly, because the source of monopoly is natural, because some of the players are very big and they can afford to produce at a large scale, and they can take advantage of economies of scale, which small players are not able to take, because players don't have the resources in terms of capital, in terms of operating at a large scale. They cannot afford to do that. So the cost of production makes a single producer more efficient than a large number of producers. Economies of scale. Examples include water, electricity transmission, natural gas. So there are only few players in these industries, and that is the reason. Because say another example could be steel production or steel industry. There are not so many players in the steel industry, because the initial investment that is required is very huge, and they have to operate at a very large scale. Similarly, in the case of natural gas, um, or refinery industry, petroleum refinery may be one of the example, because the capital investment is very huge. And this is also related with the third point, that is high cost of entry. Sometimes the nature of the business is such that the initial investment required to initiate or to start a business of that nature is very huge, and that huge investment itself is a barrier to entry. Huge investment can act as a barrier to entry, and small players and new players cannot enter into that market, and they keep away from that industry. And this keeps the monopoly of a single firm alive. Example include nuclear power, space exploration. So space exploration, everyone knows, Elon Musk. He is in this industry. Um, Space exploration. So there are very few players. So almost it's a kind of monopoly, maybe, and that monopoly, that the reason is not any kind of licensing or government regulation. The huge investment that is required for this kind of business, that is a space exploration, is very high. And that huge investment itself is acting as a barrier to entry, and that may be a source of monopoly. So how does a monopoly choose price and output? So just like we saw in the case of perfect competition, that a demand curve is a straight line. Uh, a demand curve, we saw that demand curve is a straight line. This is AR, average revenue, and this is uh, demand curve also, and this is MC, marginal cost. So the point where marginal cost cuts average revenue, that point is the point of maximum profit, and this is average cost curve. And if average cost curve is below this point, this area is called the area of profit. Why area of profit? Because in this area, the average cost per unit is lower at this point, and the average revenue is higher. So if the revenue is higher, if the price is higher, this is also the price. So if the price is higher than the average cost, that will result into profit. So in case of monopoly, the concept is same. MR is equal to MC is the point of maximum profit, but the difference is that the demand curve is downward sloping. So the demand curve is like this. AR, that is average revenue, and this is MR, marginal revenue. So in case of perfect completion, AR and MR are both same thing. This is both AR and MR in case of perfect completion. But in case of monopoly, AR and MR are different, and the slope of MR is more than the slope of average revenue. AR decreases at more speed than the AR. But in case of perfect completion, we saw that both are same. But this thing is similar, that the point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, that point is the point where the firm can maximize its profit. So like every other firm, when a monopoly maximizes profit at the output when marginal revenue equals marginal cost. However, the difference is that a monopoly's demand curve is the same as the demand curve for the product. So since the monopoly firm itself is industry, there is and is producing a unique product which does not have any substitute. So the demand curve is same for the industry and for that firm. Now, okay. So calculus is also, related with this concept of marginal revenue and total revenue. Let me share with you another. Okay. So the total revenue received from the sale of Q goods at price P is given by TR is equal to PQ, where TR is total revenue, P is the price, Q is the quantity of output. So if we multiply price by quantity of output, that will give us total revenue. So total revenue is price into quantity. Based on the total revenue, we can obtain another key concept, that is marginal revenue. So if we have the data for total revenue, we can calculate the marginal revenue, because marginal revenue is just the additional revenue added by additional unit of output. Okay, so if we have the data for total revenue, and we also have the data for Q, that is how much Q is being changed, then we can calculate marginal revenue. So in other words, marginal revenue is the extra revenue that an additional unit of product will bring a firm. It can also be described as the change in total revenue divided by the change in number of units sold. This brings us back to the idea of differentiation and rates of change. So in calculus, those who are aware of differentiation and integration, so in this case, differentiation can be applied. So more formally, marginal revenue is equal to the change in total revenue over the change in quantity when the change in quantity is equal to 1 unit. It is possible to represent marginal revenue as derivative. So marginal revenue can be written like this also. Marginal revenue is the derivative of total revenue divided by Q. And if we will take the derivative, then that will become marginal revenue. So if we differentiate total revenue, it will become marginal revenue. So marginal revenue is the derivative of total revenue with respect to demand. Demand means Q. So if we have to differentiate with respect to Q is the demand. So if example, if the total revenue function of a good is given by 100q uh, minus q square. So this is the total revenue equation, say for example. So if we differentiate this 100q minus q square, if we differentiate it with respect to q, then this will become 100 minus 2q. If we differentiate this 100q minus q square with respect to q, then it will become 100 minus 2q. So marginal revenue will be 100 minus 2q. And if quantity is given as 60, and if we put the value of 60 in this equation, then marginal revenue will be minus 20. So therefore, when quantity is equal to 60, the marginal revenue equals minus 20. So the point here is just I want to mention this thing that the calculus or differentiation can also be applied in case of marginal revenue and total revenue. So marginal revenue is nothing but the differentiation or derivative of total revenue. So if we differentiate total revenue with respect to the Q or demand, that will become marginal revenue.
Sir, how will we derive this formula?
Which formula? This one,
Sir,
100Q
total
minus
revenue, marginal revenue. No, sir. The above MR is equal to derivative of total revenue about upon quantity. Derivative of quantity.
This formula, this is very simple. Marginal revenue is nothing but change in total revenue divided by change in quantity. So that is what derivative means. That if we differentiate total revenue, it will automatically turn into marginal revenue.
Okay.
This formula, marginal revenue, this can like this also. Marginal revenue is equal to change in total revenue divided by change in Q. That is marginal revenue. But it can be expressed in terms of differentiation also. Marginal revenue is equal to derivative of total revenue divided by derivative of Q. And so graphically, say for example, we have this is an example of marginal revenue and total revenue in case of a monopoly. Prices are given in the first column and quantity is given in the second column. So as we see that there is inverse relationship, because as prices are increasing, decreasing, the quantity is increasing. So the prices are decreasing. At the same time, quantity is increasing. So there is negative relationship. For example, when the price was 6, the quantity demanded was 0. But when prices were reduced to $5, the quantity sold was 1. When price became 4, quantity became 2. And at the end, when price was fixed at $1, the firm was able to sell 5 units of that product. So that is why the demand curve in case of monopoly will be downward sloping. Downward sloping means this is price and this is quantity. So higher the price, lower will be the quantity. So if we will reduce the price, So quantity sold will be higher. If you will reduce the price, the quantity will sold will be higher. So that is why this curve is downward sloping. Downward sloping means the relationship between P and Q is inverse, is they are negatively related with each other. If one thing is increasing, another thing will decrease. The third column is for total revenue. Total revenue is just the multiplication of price and quantity. So if we multiply P and Q, that will give us total revenue. So total revenue is increasing, then after some time it has started decreasing. Similarly, this is the third column is the change in total revenue. This is marginal revenue, or in other words, that is change in total revenue. So change initially was $5, then it became $3, then it became 1, and then it became negative also. So marginal revenue can become negative also. Uh, when marginal revenue becomes negative, it means total revenue has started decreasing. The last column is for average revenue. Average revenue is if we divide total revenue by Q, that is per unit revenue, that is called average revenue. So if we divide total revenue by Q, that will give us the figure of average revenue. So average revenue is continuously decreasing. So initially it was $5, then it has started I mean, the last observation is 1. But the thing to note here is that it is not a negative figure. So because average revenue generally reduces, but it does not become negative. So it remains above this line. But as far as marginal revenue is concerned, marginal revenue can come below this x-axis also, can go in the negative region also. If we are talking about plotting and graphs. So let us see how this looks in the form of
सर
yes.
सर ये जो मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू यहाँ पर मेंशन्ड है, मतलब जब हम 1 यूनिट को प्रोड्यूस करेंगे तो उस केस में जो इंक्रीज आएगा आउटपुट में वो मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू होगा, या सर 1 यूनिट ऑफ क्वांटिटी भी जो प्रोड्यूस करेंगे वो भी मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू में काउंट होगा?
In this example, the change in quantity is 1. So we don't need to see change in
So means
total.
simple doubt है कि when we are producing one quantity, when the price is $5, we are producing one quantity and the marginal value, marginal revenue is also $5.
Yes,
So this is
because this denominator is 1, because the change in quantity in every case is 1. So if we are keeping the denominator as 1, then there is no need of this portion. We can just focus on the change in total revenue. So change in total revenue is, from 0 to 5, it is 5, then 5 to 8, it is 3, then 8 to 9, it is 1. So sometimes what happens, the change in quantity is not 1. Maybe it is 0 to 2, then 2 to 4, 4 to 6, like that. In that case, this denominator will be used.
okay, sir, got it.
Average revenue and marginal revenue. This is how average revenue of a monopolist looks like. So if MR is equal to MC, if MR is more than MC, the monopolist gains profit by increasing output. If MR is less than marginal cost, the monopolist gains profit by decreasing output. If MR is equal to MC, the monopolist is maximizing the profit. So the level at which a monopolist maximizes its profit is where MR is equal to MC. That is the point of maximum profit for the monopolist also. So a firm which is operating in a monopoly
Excuse me,
market
sir.
is,
So in any way, the monopolist is earning profit either by decreasing or increasing output. We're saying that, right?
No,
Hello.
no, we are
Yes.
optimal level of production. We are talking about the level of production at which the monopolist will earn maximum profit.
So the what does it mean when we say that monopolist gains profit by decreasing output? And like in the first, when the marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, and we are saying the monopolist gains profit by increasing output. So in both the ways, they are just playing with output, but they are earning profit in any way, right?
Yes, yes, yes. But in terms of absolute profit,
Yes, sir.
because the purpose of a firm is to make absolute, maximize the profit. So the point of maximum profit will be where MR is equal to MC. If there is difference between MR and MC, then it can adjust the level of production. It can increase or decrease the level of production.
Okay, sir.
Let us see how it looks in terms of graph. So this is how it looks. Uh, this is average revenue line. This is marginal revenue line. The red line is actually marginal cost curve. So as we know that the point where marginal cost cuts marginal revenue, that point is the point of optimal profit or maximum profit. So if this is the point, I mean, if the firm produces Q star, in that case, the firm will make maximum profit. The profit of the monopolist will be maximized. The firm has a choice to produce at Q2 also. It can increase the level of production also. It can reduce the level of production also. In both cases, the profit will be there. But we are not talking about, we are talking about maximization of the profit. So this region, I mean, this box has the maximum area. This box has the maximum area. P star and Q star. So this area is the maximum area. But if we increase the price, say for example P1, then in that case, the firm will be able to sell Q1. The quantity will be Q1, and the region is this. But in this case, the area of this rectangle will be less than the area of this perfect square, that is P star and Q star. And area is what? P multiplied by Q. P multiplied by Q, or P star multiplied by Q star. So this can also be called total revenue. So total revenue will be maximum at this is P star multiplied by Q star. So if the firm decides to reduce the price, say for example, initially it was selling at P star. Now it has decided to reduce the price because it's a monopoly, and monopoly has control over pricing. A monopolist has control over pricing. So if the firm or if the monopoly reduces the price, so as we know that if prices of anything is reduced, more units of that product can be sold. So at P2, the firm will now be able to sell Q2. So at a lower price, it is able to sell a higher number of quantity. But at this point, since it is average cost that determines the price, that determines the profit, because so at this point, the average cost is higher, and so what is happening actually, if we are reducing the price, if the monopolist is reducing the price, it is sacrificing some quantity, and but the point where MR is equal to MC, this point is the point where the total revenue will be maximum. Total revenue will be maximum. Now the concept of consumer surplus is also related with this. Consumer surplus means charging different prices from different customers. So say for example, when the firm was selling at P star, there were some customers who were ready to pay a price P1. But since the firm has fixed only a single price, those who are ready to pay a higher price in terms of P, so this area is being neglected. Similarly, if if the prices are reduced from P star to PQ, then more new customers can be motivated, can be it can result more into more customers, more consumers. So since the price is fixed at a higher level than P2, then a lot of such consumers have been left out. So the point here is that there is a concept of product price differentiation. Price differentiation is adopted by different companies or different firms just to take advantage and just to exploit consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is the difference between what a consumer is actually paying and what the consumer is ready to pay. So if he is ready to pay more, but the company is charging a less price, the difference is called consumer surplus. This is an example where the monopolist will just break even, because at this point the cost and marginal revenue are same. So there won't be any profit. Example of a firm which is making loss. Why it is making loss? Because average cost is higher than average revenue. Average revenue is this one, average revenue, which is also called demand. So if the average revenue is here, but the firm is able to produce at a higher cost than the revenue, then it will make loss. So these curves and loss profits are same, just like in case of perfect completion. The only difference is that in case of perfect completion, the curves for the demand curve was a straight line, but in case of monopoly, the demand curve is downward sloping. The marginal cost, the marginal revenue and average revenue both are different, but in case of per completion, marginal revenue and average revenue are same, marginal revenue and average revenue.
Sir, why we are writing
Okay.
demand as average revenue?
Demand and average revenue both are same thing, because at say for example at price, this is some price. So at this price, how much the firm is able to sell. So that will be average revenue also. And at this price, how much is the demand? Demand is what? Demand, how much quantity the firm is able to sell. Average revenue. So if we what is average revenue? Total revenue divided by quantity. Demand, average revenue, both are same thing. In case of perfect competition, demand, average revenue, and price, these three things are same thing. But in case of monopoly, demand and revenue are basically same thing. Okay, we will continue on this same topic tomorrow also. That's all for today. Thank you very much
Okay.
for joining
Thank
this
you, sir.
class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.